created this, but now it's in someone else's hands who knows how the world works in different ways, right? They have connections in government and entertainment, and I think they're just going to take it to the next level.
Right. As a lifelong, MMA fan, is that good for you or bad for you? Right. It can be that, they sophisticate in a way that decreases injuries and all that good stuff, right? But then there's also the bit where they make it more of like an entertainment, heavy on the entertainment and less on the sport, the art of jiu-jitsu or MMA.
So to me, it's always about the art, right? Like my gym is not about a business. I still practice, 3, 4, 5 days a week. And so I don't do it for the money. I do it because I'm just passionate about training in the art form. And as long as I don't lose money, my wife lets me stay involved. But I also don't watch MMA a lot anymore. So I was a huge fan, years ago, and now it's slowly faded. It never felt violent to me in the past. As I get older, as I get a little bit older, I'm still young-ish. It's not as appealing anymore, and that's an interesting change. Like I love the martial arts. I don't know if I like the sport and the business as much.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's something that's changing for me personally. I don't watch the UFC as much. I'll catch a fight here and there, and I'll still read the results. But 5 years ago, I would never have missed a show.
Right. Mainly the art as you get older is what you're. Yeah.
To me, it was a lab. Like I always wanted to see what were the techniques that work. Like what works in a real fight. Like you just didn't know.
Right.
It's not what you see in a movie.
It's like a chess game.
Yeah.
So tell us more about your gym. So I looked up online, and you have a lot of really cool programs. You already talked about kind of how you have the women teaching women class, and what else are you doing kind of in your gym, reaching out to kind of the broader Chicago community? And
Chicago has a bunch of really good gyms, right? And in the 80s and 90s, Chicago was a boxing city, and that slowly faded. You don't find boxing gyms in Chicago anymore. You'll see like a title boxing or UFC gym, but it's mostly a workout. It's not really, they're not teaching boxing. But martial arts probably has a handful, 5 to 10 gyms that are like teaching real martial arts that are grounded in like things that work. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, judo. And so at our school, I'm really focused on creating a complete martial artist. So we, our trainers in both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai kickboxing are some of the best in the world. The guy who runs my kickboxing program, Brian Gassaway, he's had 60 or 70 professional fights, 4 or 5 in the UFC. He's fought all over the world. There's 4 or 5 black belts that teach our jiu-jitsu program, and everyone has a different style and different philosophy. The way I teach is very different than the way other black belts teach. Because you're the way I teach is a function of everyone I've trained with. So every training partner I train with, if we spar or we roll, I've taken something away from you, and you've taken something away from me. So my experience is going to be different from yours and different from yours. Mm-hmm. And so I try to encapsulate that in our gym, and so we offer really a unique experience that everyone has a different style that they bring to the gym, and we're also a very open and accepting place. Martial arts ultimately is about respect. We don't put up with people who are disrespectful towards others. Their priority is to make sure people have a good workout, they learn something, they come home safely. They don't take bad attitudes. People get kicked out of the gym. It doesn't happen very often, but it happens. And then we try to, we welcome all different types of people. Like we mentioned earlier, we started a program for the trans community. We have a couple of our members that are really passionate about that. We work with kids. We partner with After School Matters. And so that's a local nonprofit that was started by Mayor Daley's wife 10 or 15 years ago. And so we do programs over the summer with them where we train 25 kids. They have to show up 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and train.
Yeah, it seems like a good outlet for aggression, right?
I don't teach the program, but I like to make an appearance and just introduce myself and say hi to the kids. And I'll teach 1 or 2 classes. And I remember the first year of the program, there was this one kid, and he was a big kid. He's probably like 16. They're all CPS students, so he's probably like a junior. And he had like a swagger about him. And so you could tell he was super athletic. During class, he had a lot of potential. It's like, man, this kid's going to be really, really good. He doesn't show up ever again. So he showed up the first day and didn't show up ever again. And so reading a newspaper like a year later, and I couldn't forget his name. Like he had just a very memorable name. And I was reading a newspaper, and they're talking about a murder on the north side. And the victim was beat up by the perp and this kid. And they killed him, and they stuffed him in a garbage can. behind the building.
Wow.
Yeah.
The kid at your gym before.
That young guy. He showed up once.
Yeah.
And so, his life's over, right?
Right.
They caught him. He's in jail. He's never going to get out.
Right.
But it makes you think, like, is there one more thing you could have done? Could I have followed up with him with a phone call and say, hey, you got to come back? Like, what could we have done to, like, capture his attention more? Like, he just wasn't interested, or the streets got him for whatever reason. But you have that potential to, like, through this programming, it's not just about a sport. Like, it could be basketball, or it could be football, it could be whatever. It could be music lessons. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the same. But it's capturing them and inspiring them to keep going. Like, he wasn't inspired enough to keep going. And now, ultimately, made a really bad decision in his life, and now it's never going to be the same. And so, taking that kind of learning and saying, like, if I can get you in the door, I need to figure out a way to keep you there. Because if I can keep you there for a summer, and I don't want you to be a professional fighter, but I want you to be inspired enough to study something and to take that to try to be great at it, but take that be great at other things in life.
So how do we do that? I mean, that's an interesting, all sports, or music, or any kind of after school program that kids can get involved with, right? To stop them from maybe doing things that aren't great that they would be doing. Martial arts is particularly interesting though, right? Because it's heavy on discipline and patience and respect, like you said. So, I mean, just in general, maybe even specific to martial arts, how do we get more kids into,
That's interesting. I can't get my kids interested.
Yeah.
So I have two girls, and they both, tried it, and they just weren't into it. They're like, they want to do ballet or tennis or something. They just weren't digging in. So every kid's different, right? Before this job here, I was the chief operating officer for the Chicago Children's Choir, and so it was a music education nonprofit. And so, they were inspired by music and singing. And so everyone's going to have something that inspires them, and who knows what inspires me or what inspires you, but everyone's going to be quite different. And martial arts not going to be right for everybody. It was right for me, and it's right for the people at my gym. But finding something that can inspire you, you don't always have to be like a professional. Like, you're not doing something just to be a professional or get paid for doing it. You do something because it makes you feel better. Right? There's health benefits. There's also mental benefits of, like, just being in an environment that's social.
Right. Surrounded by like-minded people who are interested in the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And in martial arts, it's about the challenge. Like, you get defeated on day 1 and day 2 and day 100, but eventually you're going to get better and better and better. And then you find out, that you're better than the person that was beating you for a year. And you slowly work up that chain. And that was inspiring to me. I'd lead into that competition to keep driving me. Like, I just hated losing. Right. But then in this sport, you always lose. Right. You can train forever and you're still going to lose. There's always someone who's going to be better than you.
Right. All right, Misho, it was great talking to you. Thanks for joining us. And we'll be following you. Good luck in your future endeavors.
No, it's my pleasure. Now I got to get you guys in the gym.
I'll be there.
All right.
Thanks all for listening, and a special thanks to Misho Ceko for joining us. This podcast is produced by Haz Yano and Andrew Weis. Our publisher is David Raban. This podcast is a production of University of Chicago Public Policy Podcasts.
Hey UC3P listeners, I'm Thomas.
And I'm Nick.
In the United States, public faith in the military remains sky high, while trust in other government institutions sinks to an all-time low.
At the same time, fewer than 1% of Americans will ever serve in the armed forces, and the cultural divide between active duty troops and the civilian population continues to widen.
UC3P presents a new series, Thank You for Your Service, where we take a deep dive into the complex world of civil-military affairs.
We'll address the politicization of the military, defense policy in the news, and the importance of staying informed in a democracy.
Join us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts as we explore how our professional military institution relates to the society it serves.